animals, talking animals, talking animals. It walks like an animal, talks like an animal, must be an animal. Come hear the animals, talking animals, talking animals.
This is WMNF Tampa. It is the 25th day of September 2024, and for the next hour, did I say that right? 2024? Yeah. And for the next hour, this is Talking Animals, a show about animals and animal topics. Duncan Strauss, the genius behind this long-running and award-winning program, is off doing something fabulous. So I'm going to be in here with you for the next hour, and then we'll make way for NPR News. Excuse me. My name is Glenn Hatchell. I am a former programmer here at WMNF and a regular guest on Talking Animals. About once every 3 or 4 months, Duncan and I get together and do a segment called Ask the Trainer, and we are scheduled to do that again coming up November 13th. So that's going to be coming up here in any number of weeks. But I am, excuse me, needing a swallow of water here. This is... Thank you, Jessica, for setting me up with everything here this morning. I hope that I have on the line with me live Mariah Shesky. Are you there, Mariah?
Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning. Excellent. We are there. Now I'm comfortable. Now I feel my feet on the ground. The dogs are right behind me. Now I'm feeling good about this. So we've got a couple of things we're going to take a different direction with this morning, and that is, I'm good. Sorry. I'm making sure here that I know that I've got a good support system behind me as I am flying the airplane, metaphorically, for the first time in a long time in here. So we have a hurricane sitting off into the Gulf, and I want to bring you 2 notices before we get started this morning. Pinellas County has issued a mandatory evacuation for Zone A and all mobile homes across the county. That started at 9 a.m. this morning. 6 shelters are open, including pet-friendly and special needs shelters. And Hillsborough County has issued mandatory evacuation for Evacuation Zone A and for all mobile homes and manufactured housing within the county starting at 9 a.m. today. The county has opened 6 shelters for residents in Evacuation Zone A, and which homes are vulnerable to storm surge and flooding. So if you're in those areas, you probably already know it and you are probably aware, but keep an eye. And for now, we are going to continue back into what was the original plans, is that to talk more about talking animals today and what we are going to do. So decades ago, music brought me to WMNF and also is a big part of what created my friendship with today's guest, Mariah. We were both working with, as I say, supplemental staff for the ASPCA, and we're both early risers, and we found ourselves most every morning talking about music. And I love that the fact that we still talk several times a month, and rarely is it ever about animals. And that's part of why I'm looking forward to today to be talking about some of the fears, some of the challenges that companion animals who live in our home deal with or experience storms. And this topic came up because this was one of the things we talked about and started noticing that all around the country, dogs that typically haven't dealt with storm-related phobias were dealing with storm-related phobias. So that was kind of the genesis for today's conversation, and it truly is just a conversation. We're going to be exploring, hopefully going into some tangential discussions that'll be applicable. And hopefully, if you are listening to this at home and have an animal, you're going to hear some things today that could help you, that could be pretty simple. So how does that sound for an intro there, Miss Shesky?
Sounds great. I think it's a really timely topic for everybody.
Yes. So Mariah's background is she's a certified dog behavior consultant and a certified professional dog trainer and owner of Big Sky Behavior in Missoula, Montana, and is a massive fan, that's not the right, is obsessed with the Tedeschi Trucks Band. So just to throw in some music references there and such. But you have throughout a lot of, at least a lot of what I'm aware of that you've done in your career have related and been revolved around making dogs comfortable in unknown situations. Thinking of the work you did in the shelters early on with Spend the Nights and some of the studies you were involved with in those. Can you talk a little bit about maybe how you've seen things evolve for how pet owners are dealing with helping their animals, dealing with fears now? I'm sure you're seeing it more than in the past. So you want to expound on that a little bit? Because I'm stumbling over my words.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for that intro. I think that actually people, first of all, I specialize in treating dogs exhibiting signs of fear and aggression, so I do see a lot of it. I think people are seeking me out when I do work with private clients, but I think there's more awareness now. Than there used to be in the past, I think, 10, 15 years. I think people are understanding that when their dog is afraid and exhibiting, fearful body language, nervous, things that we would recognize easily and say, oh my gosh, my dog seems scared right now. I think people are recognizing that, that we can help them through it. We don't need to tell them, just deal with it. And there are things that we can do to help them through these scary times. I think people are a little bit more prepared. I think there's more information out there, which is amazing. And I think people are realizing again that there are things that we can do to help them. We don't have to just say, "Oh, this is hard for them." They just have to deal with it. And I see people being really supportive and really wanting to support their animals through some of these things that are scarier in the world. And frankly, our world is ever evolving. It's changing really fast. And I think it's tough for the dogs to keep up.
Mm-hmm. So let's take it to let's think about a student at University of South Florida, which is right here in the Tampa area. Go Bulls. And let's say that a student over there gets a dog and has never been a dog owner before. And what kind of signs should this new dog owner be looking for that's gonna say, oh, this is fear? So a brand new dog owner knows absolutely nothing about what fear may look like in a dog. What should they be looking for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think some of the things that we would even exhibit, maybe getting still, maybe, pausing and listening, like trying to identify what is that thing I'm hearing or seeing or smelling. Maybe some lowered body language, again, maybe ears back, kind of crouched down or listening, maybe alert or really getting tall and kind of pausing and again, trying to identify what that concerning smell or sight or sound might be. A lot of dogs might seek us out for comfort. I know my dog does. If she were nervous about anything, she would seek me out right away and say, help.
Well, and I think that's a good point where you're on there. For some dogs, they're very animated, is a term that I've usually liked to use, and it's easy to tell if they are the kind of dog that is going to come running up to you and kiss your face. And I think that it's those that sometimes, it's what you said there. Sometimes the body language can be a little bit different, but I think that crouching and kind of moving away from scary thing is probably, I think, is something that's pretty consistent with me, for sure. If there's something that I'm a little nervous about, you can figure that I'm probably going to very subtly create some distance from it.
Definitely. I think it's really similar. I just took my dog to the ocean for the second time, and the first time she was so tentative and so nervous about the sounds and the smells and the hugeness of it. And the second time she was pretty darn confident, trotted right up, a little nervous, a little kind of jumpy, moving away. But, she adapted and learned that it wasn't quite as scary as it was that first time. So, yeah, I think the behaviors, a lot of the behaviors are very similar, where she might move away at first, but then say, hey, maybe I will check this out after she becomes a little bit more confident.
So has she been in water before?
She likes to wade. She likes to get her feet wet, and she will swim in shallow water. But the waves are very different. We don't have waves in Montana.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a big lake. We could go to a big lake, but
right. But still, it's not the vastness, the magnitude of the ocean.
Yeah, and it's a really good example. I think it could be really easy to say, from our human perspective, oh, she's familiar with water, she'll be fine at the ocean, but it's completely different. It's higher intensity, it's louder, it's bigger in it, and again, walking right up to it, it's really close. So all those things cause heightened stress and fear, and she wanted to be real careful.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I mean, that's one of those behaviors that is standard behavior. Standard's the wrong word. That's a behavior that's similar to what a human would do. Where
exactly.
so often, a lot of scared humans do want to cuddle. They want to be next to someone who makes them feel safe, but that's not always the case, though, with dogs. Have you found that true, that some dogs, when they get scared, they get avoiding of even their companions, or is that rare?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's one of the things that we see a lot of. We will see dogs seek out their companions, maybe want to get in their lap and know that if they have that really strong relationship and have done a lot of training, a lot of relationship building previously, the dogs will seek out. A lot of them will seek out their human. But with storms specifically, we see a lot of dogs retreating inside the house. A lot of them are looking for those small spaces, small rooms, usually with no exterior walls. And so that's why a lot of times we see dogs hiding out in the bathroom or in a closet in a bedroom or even in the bathtub. And, I think that many of them are seeking, again, the least amount of noise, the least amount of that visual lightning and flashes and things like that. And so, a lot of times dogs will say, oh my gosh, there's a storm, where's the dog? And she'll be inside the closet in the master bedroom or something like that, or in the bathroom. So, and I think that, again, while they may like their person for comfort, also they kind of feel that need to just hide out and hunker down in the room that has the least amount of noise and visual stimuli. So.
Yeah, so many
to go either way.
Yeah, and so this is WMNF Tampa. This is Talking Animals. My name is Glenn Hatchell. I am sitting in for Duncan Strauss today, And my guest today is Mariah Shesky, who currently is on the West Coast and has her dog. And we're talking very specifically about what her dog was doing with the water yesterday. And there's an aspect of what you're talking about that's that acclimation of and that familiarization to where, and I experience it myself, of when I go into a situation for the very first time. There are nerves, even walking back here in here this morning, I mean, I did this. I was standing behind this mic for 17 years. But still walking in this morning, there still was that, all of those things that you were describing there earlier is exactly what I was experiencing. And I think I probably shared it on air about the fact of I felt my feet on the ground at that moment. But it was there are things like that are so similar to, if you think about what we would do to get ourselves comfortable with it, that's exactly what we need to do with our dogs, is to give them that chance to, if you can, like you were talking about, being able to give them that chance to experience the water, but also move away from it. And with storms, of course, we can't necessarily predict those. So there is that element of, there's that element of wanting to prepare a little bit, which I do want to explore, but I think this would be a good time to kick in a song. So having the musical background of every time that I have sat in for Duncan on Talking Animals, I have always I've always played a number of songs because I always need a break, and there's always one I want to listen to. So we're going to begin this morning with our first song and take a little break here on Talking Animals and WMNF with Spirit. Well, maybe we're going to keep talking. All right. So I'll find somebody to come in here and figure out what I've done there while we didn't hear that music. But for now, we're going to continue on chatting, Mariah, since that didn't work.
Sounds good.
Yes, let's keep going.
Yeah, I think that your point about the storms being unpredictable is the trickiest thing to tackle. And I definitely want to leave people with some thoughts about how to help their animals through some of those storms. And I think the tricky part about it being, again, we can watch the weather and know that a storm is coming. But the thing that I think we can really do to help our dogs, especially, is to plan ahead. And I believe the statistic out there is something like 50% of dogs will develop some sort of sound sensitivity or similar in their lifetime. And so, prevention can go a long way. And there's a lot of things we can do to help our animals get used to some of these, especially the noises and the flashes. And even just something really simple when they're puppies, when you do hear a loud noise, just some of this like ad hoc kind of in the moment desensitization and counter conditioning, or at least counter conditioning. So they hear a noise, maybe there's just a loud bang across the street. What a good boy. Toss some cookies. It really does go a long way. I've always done that with new dogs that I've added to my family, and I've actually done it in the moment, too, when I may not think a dog would have a sound sensitivity to thunder or a storm. And I really find it to be effective for some of these mild cases. And again, as a prevention, as a method of prevention, because they don't really know, they don't really have a learned association of, oh my gosh, this is a scary noise I just heard. So they hear a noise, what a good boy, throw some cookies or throw a treat or cookies in a little food toy or a cardboard, a paper bag, something like that can really go a long way in prevention and helping promote some positive or at least not negative emotions to the sound.
So one way to think about then, if my dog all of a sudden shows something that I think, oh, he's scared, he's starting to get worried about the storm, I could giving him a treat is going to get his mind off of that a little bit. And the other thing is, though, if it turns out that maybe this is a dog who loves fetch, that you could also throw the toy in that case, right? Because
absolutely,
yes, because at this point you're getting the dog to think about but basically you're getting their brain off of, oh my gosh, there's thunder, over to we're going to play fetch, my favorite.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, and really, that's such a great point, really thinking about what is the most exciting or motivational thing for your dog can go a long way. So if they do already have that learned association with, like a border collie or a cattle dog loving to play fetch, that's a great option.
Now, when you say learned association, what does that mean?
If they already have a good, positive feeling about playing ball, or about, with my current dog now, it's food. So, if I throw some cookies on the ground, or I throw some treats that are in a paper bag on the ground, she already knows that's something she's familiar with, and she knows that means food is coming, and she really enjoys food. So she already has that positive association with that, the presentation of the toy or the food.
So I could very confidently say that my oldest dog has a very positive association with people, because her favorite thing when we're out on a walk is that she sees somebody that she can say hi to. But that is, and that, what you were mentioning earlier, you used a phrase of counter conditioning. That's the kind of the breakdown of what happens in counter conditioning, is that something is, as you were describing, something is scary, something scares me, but every time that happens, I get a cookie, or the ball gets thrown, or if we're looking at human behavior, I get a $5 bill. I always like to,
perfect example.
Yeah, I always like to turn it to human behavior, and thinking about the fact if there were, and thinking about it from a cash aspect, because that's something we can all relate to.
Absolutely. Yeah, and something I've been doing for the past couple of years, I always got a little nervous when I went to the dentist, and nothing horrible ever happened, but I just, I still feel a little nervous about it. I can feel that feeling in my stomach when I know I have to go. And so a few years ago, what I started doing, after I complete my visit to the dentist, I go buy like an $8 mocha with a coffee drink, and I never buy them because, again, they're expensive and it's got 1 million calories and sugar and all of that. But I love a mocha with, chocolate and whipped cream and all of that. It's the only time I buy it. And so twice a year, I go to the dentist, and then I go through the coffee place and get this really fancy coffee drink. And I now actually feel excited about going to the dentist. I'm going in about a month, and I'm kind of excited about it. And I know it's because of the coffee drink, the fancy coffee drink I buy.
That is a perfect example. It really is. I mean, that's the perfect way to change. I mean, that is how you change behavior. And whether we're talking about changing our own behavior, someone else's behavior, there's a number of clips about, funny things about using positive reinforcement to change things. And it works.
It does work.
It works. It works better on animals, in my opinion. But, well, I shouldn't say it works better. It's more efficient on animals because they don't have the cognitive aspect to question it, so to speak. Do you think that's true?
I think it depends on the severity. So I don't have like a huge fear of the dentist. I feel uncomfortable, and I feel some mild uncertainty. And I feel a little bit of a physical. I can feel it in my stomach and feel a little nervous. But I wouldn't say that it's extreme fear. So I think when we're talking about, counter conditioning, I think it works best with, or most efficiently with kind of these mild, maybe into moderate cases.
Mm-hmm.
I think extreme fear takes a really long time and is tricky. Not to say that we can't make progress, because we absolutely can, but I think it takes longer, and I think it is more difficult.
Well, and I think also
on the severity,
right, and part of what we didn't talk about this, but neither of us are medically trained, so you're not going to hear us talking about any sort of medications or anything like that today, other than to touch on exactly what you're saying right there, that if your dog or your cat or whatever your animal may be, if they are if they are showing signs of fear in any situation, but Storm's something along that line, your vet is one of your most valuable resources in this case, because the more severe it is, the more helpful certain meds can be, and sometimes it's supplements. That's the advantage of the right of finding the right professionals if you're dealing with severe cases. But as we're talking about today, and really have been able to keep talking about, I think, are things that the people that are listening right now at home may very well be dealing with their own animals. So we're going to, I'm going to give this another shot here. Big thanks to DJ Spaceship for coming in and I think getting things right here for me. So there we go. Spirit with Animal Zoo here on Talking Animals, WMNF Tampa.
Living in the city, I've been abused. He has jobs I keep and people I meet. They don't do more than make me amused. Everywhere I turn now, just more bad news. So don't look now, don't ask how. Gonna find me a way to the animal zoo. Oh no, something went wrong. Well, you're much too fat and a little too long. Hey, hey, got too much to lose. Got to get on back to the animal zoo. Looking at my body, I'm slipping down so far. The air I breathe and the water I drink is selling me short and turning me around. Everyone I see now on their way to everybody. So don't look now and don't ask how. Gonna find a way home to the animal zoo. Oh no, something went wrong. Well, you're much too fat and a little too long. Hey, hey, got too much to lose. Gotta get on home to the animal zoo. Hey.
.5. This is Talking Animals. Glenn Hatchell sitting in for Duncan today. It is 11:30, coming up on about 20 till 12. Here on the 25th day of September, Mariah Shesky of Blue Sky Behavior in Missoula, Montana, is my guest today, and we are talking about fear in dogs and storm-related phobias for the animals, and that is a timely topic here in Tampa Bay because we have an active hurricane out on the Gulf at the moment, and probably will not be the last one that we will be watching before the end of the season this year. So we wanted to continue talking about some of the things. Also going to talk about cats a little bit, but as Mariah was mentioning during Spirit right there, some of the things that pet owners can do, both during the time your animal's experiencing some of those fears, but also then things you can do when things are when weather's nice. And I think one of the things that popped in my mind when we were talking earlier is, I just wanted to mention it at that point, was reward your dog for good behavior. A lot of people do it when they're working on something, but if your dog is just sitting there doing exactly what you want them to do, that's a great time to just let them know that, hey, you keep doing that, I'm going to keep rewarding you. So just my own little tip. So what do you think, Mariah?
I love that. And just for your everyday connection with your pet, absolutely. But it also can go a really long way in terms of training behaviors that you may want and could be helpful when there are stressful things going on. So when there is a storm, it's really great if you could call your dog over instead of having them, run in the opposite direction because they're scared, or there are a lot of things that you can train in advance. But you're right, you have to have that connection first. And so that's my favorite thing to do is, anytime my dog is doing something appropriate or she hops up on a log or something, what a good girl. You're so smart. What a good girl. And I really find that goes a long way and help build connection and positive relationships. And, in the end, I think that's what we all want with our pets anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. And usually when I talk to people, it was more about, as you were saying there, teaching a behavior. It really is reinforcing your dog to do the things you want them to do. It's not that they can sit for 3 minutes while, somebody that they don't know is holding the leash, but it's more of, they're not going to knock you down when you go to feed them and, just general things like that. That we do each and every day that's just so easy to build that build on that human-animal bond. So
absolutely. I think the little things that you do every day go a really long way. And I know I learn best in short little spurts. So why not do some training when you ask your dog, maybe she sits before you feed her, or walking politely down the driveway. Those are great opportunities to just build some relationship and let your dog know they're doing well. Yeah, exactly. They're doing well. And it will also, if your dog shows signs of fear, it is going to help them in those moments because there's that again, it comes back to that human-animal bond. And that's the ways that the animal has that same bond that you do is when those storms start happening and it's up to you that they want to get by. I view that as a good thing because we provide everything. Everything that I've actually read this is not, can't take credit for this, but everything a dog is depends on something that a human did. Yeah. So let's do good things. So let's talk about music or sounds. Okay. A lot of people, there are a multitude of things you can buy that science says will help your animal be calm during storms. And there are others that will, let's just put it on the pet channel or something. Or
My dogs listen to WMNF quite frequently, as an example. So what about, is adding noise a good thing for noise phobias?
I love that question. And I think the answer is somewhat complicated because it depends on your specific pet. However, there has been quite a bit of research done regarding the frequencies of thunder and loud noises. I know we're talking about storms specifically, but this could apply to anything that might, cause your dog to feel scared or
just
stressed.
a sudden unknown noise. It could be a car backfire.
Exactly. But I think what people are starting to kind of realize or has been studied in the past is that those lower frequencies are the things that we can do some sound masking to try and address and maybe cover up some of those lower frequencies. And I've always done this with my dogs for some reason. It always just made sense to me that when the 4th of July or New Year's fireworks were happening, we always put on an action film, or we played, music that, has some lower frequencies. And I really always found it to be effective. And so it's been really interesting kind of reading different research and different experts who study sound, and that those lower frequencies are the things that tend to be the best at sound masking. And I think it's important to point it out because there's so much information out there about calming music, and turn on YouTube and play one of those calming channels. And while those can be great in certain situations, I know we used to use those when I did a lot of shelter work, and I would have a dog in my office and play some of those calming music, videos or recordings. And they were relaxing. I felt relaxed. But during a storm, we're looking for something different. We're looking for some of those, sometimes if depending on what type of music you listen to, you can play your favorite bands during a storm kind of loud and really be helping your dog out because it's going to cover up some of those lower frequencies.
Yeah, actually, I do think part of it is that if you think about the average dog and the typical companion dog, I bet it follows another 80-20 curve that 80% of them will benefit from just having anything on that just adds to more noise and takes away from the isolation of a loud thunder, crash or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't just kind of thinking, watching it because, I've had dogs who, I've actually noticed with my last two my last three, the older they got, the more susceptible they became to the storms. So I know there's an aging part of that for sure is playing a factor into it. But, I also know the storms have been more intense. That's easy to tell from just experiencing the storms, but also then seeing the scientific data as far as the lightning strikes and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Is
and
there
more frequent? I think the storms being more frequent too, and that's something that's a big change that we're seeing up in Montana, where I live. There are more storms these last few summers. So many more clients are reporting new sound sensitivities with dogs that are 5, 6, 7 years old, and they didn't previously have concerns around storms. And I think the frequency also, isn't just one storm a month. It's many, many storms. So I think the weather changing and the frequency of the storms is really affecting a lot of dogs also.
That's I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, and I guess you're right when I think about it around the country. We obviously in Florida have, we have frequent storms during the summer. So I I hadn't
Yeah,
thought
it's
about that, but
interesting.
there still is. It's interesting.
Yep.
All of
Yep.
it is. That's why I love this stuff. So
Yeah,
usually,
and you're right. Every dog is different. So
Yeah.
every dog is different depending on where they live. Maybe a dog in Florida could, maybe if we did a lot of preventative work, maybe they would be more acclimated, and maybe they would get used to the more frequent storms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a good question.
So talk about if one thing doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah. So I love, we talked a little bit about prevention. Again, you hear some of this ad hoc, counter conditioning that you can do. So you hear a loud noise, what a good girl, throw some cookies or throw a toy or something, just to pair something great with something that might be a little concerning. And again, this is prevention. So this is this is before your dog may exhibit some of that body language that says they might be nervous. This is being preventative, just pairing great things with loud noises. Another thing that I love doing, and this is probably my favorite behavior to teach, and I work on this with a lot of dogs, a lot of clients that I work with now. I love teaching find it or get it, some sort of behavior that cues the dog to put their nose on the ground and look for something. Usually snacks, usually treats.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can teach this in advance, it can be a really, really helpful behavior. Maybe you're hiking, and again, if you've taught it in advance, and your dog starts to be a little nervous about weather coming in, you can do a find it or get it, find those treats on the ground that you're throwing, and make your way back to the car. Or make your way to some sort of safety. But then the benefit of find it is it's a behavior that you've taught. So it's something you've taught the dog to do. They know what's happening. That's the biggest help, I think, for a lot of dogs, is they need to know what is happening and what they should do. So find it, they put their nose on the ground, and now they're sniffing. And we know that sniffing is so beneficial for dogs. It can be calming. It can be an alternate behavior, as you talked about earlier. It can be an alternate behavior to being concerned about the clouds rolling in or starting to feel worried about the noise that they're hearing. And so it's got this really amazing effect, I found. This one behavior. That if I could teach one thing early on, it would be find it or get it.
Well, so go ahead and kind of what would be the first step? What would you do first if you were going in to a client to teach them to do this? What would you do?
And this is the great thing. Dogs love this game, and it's so easy to teach, so anyone can do it. I think the easiest way would be just sit in your living room or your back patio, wherever your dog is most comfortable. You can throw one little treat. Or if your dog loves their kibble, you could use that. You could feed half of their breakfast this way. You just throw one little cookie across, the carpet or the patio, place where the dog can see it, and say, get it, or find it, and the dog's going to chase it because, one, it's moving, and that's fun, and then it's a cookie or a piece of their kibble or something they enjoy, and then they eat it. And that's it, and then you just repeat. Throw it again the other way, find it. The dog says, oh, cool, I'm going to chase that and eat it. Good boy or good girl. And that's it. And then you're training this really great behavior to put their nose on the ground and look for something. And then once they can do it in that easy environment, then you could try it out maybe in the grass or maybe outside if you were teaching it inside.
Yeah, thinking about if somebody's sitting around this afternoon when the rain's supposed to move at about 6 this evening, I believe. But it is the kind of thing. So what would be different ways then after the dog starts, let's say, looking back at you for if you're going to throw another one? If I was sitting around the house this evening, what kind of how would I make it more of a challenge for my dog?
Oh yeah. There's so many ways, and if we're talking about inside only, because you've got rain coming, maybe there's some towels on the ground, and you can kind of, crumple them up a little bit so there's some ridges. So maybe the dog has to kind of sniff, in between the towel, or you can put a bunch of toys, maybe in their toy bin. That would be really hard. Drop some treats into your toy bin or in a pile of pillows or towels or anything that you have, just so the dog has to really kind of sniff around and move the fabric around to try and get that treat. The grass is my favorite. So when it's safe to go outside, the grass is kind of like one big snuffle mat, which is, just any pieces of fabric that they have to kind of sniff around and find the treats in.
That's fabulous. Actually, you mentioning snuffle mats, I feed my dogs every meal out of snuffle mats. So, because they love it, and for exactly the reasons you said, they are so excited because it's find it. Without me saying anything to them, it's the fact of, they're going to not kibble around. So not only what's in the snuffle mat is going to be some afterwards that they can go find. The beauty of doing things like that is after they've each finished and they go check out each other's, then they go back to their own for about another 5 minutes or so. So really through the morning, it's about a 15-minute process from the time that I put the food down until they finally get up wherever they're going to settle for their post-meal nap. That's one of the great things about it as well, is that it keeps them engaged, looking for just there might be that one more piece of kibble that's there. And that's what's great. That's what's great about Find It, is that if they start thinking that, well, maybe there's going to be one more down here. You were talking about at the beginning with one kibble. After a while, if they discover that there's 2 or 3 around, or keep finding it until I tell you we're done. And it really, especially if, as you said with breakfast, using the example of give them, if they go for the kibble, use half of the breakfast for that. It's just such an easy way to train that's fun, that can go so far to that ripple effect of making so many other behaviors or other things you want your dog to do. It makes it so much easier for your dog to recognize your body language and start responding to you quicker. It really is all interrelated. So, yeah,
I love that. And then it becomes, once your dog understands Find It, you could be in maybe you're again hiking or something, and in a situation that could be a little hard or a little difficult for your dog to navigate. You can say, don't worry about it. I've got it. Let's just find it. Get their nose back on the ground, do some sniffing, maybe relax a little bit, and then we could keep moving, or we could get back to the car or wherever you're going. So it's a really great behavior that you can use in the future in a situation that might be difficult for your dog to navigate.
So one more thing I'm curious if you've tried, and this was referenced or mentioned in an article that you sent me, or a post that you had sent me about dealing with fears, but also it was about masking sounds and such. And one of the things this post mentioned if adding unusual sounds was to put tennis balls in a dryer. And start running the dryer because of the unusual and different sounds from that. I had never heard that before, but I found that really fascinating. If trying to find novel sounds, and obviously the metal inside of a dryer, usually has that ding a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mention that only because think outside the box, think inside the dryer, think outside your appliances about different ways you can just create some, different noises. Even thinking about the front
love,
door. So
yeah, I love that one. I remember growing up, for some reason, I remember shoes being in the dryer. Like maybe my mother was washing shoes or like tennis shoes, and I remember them banging, and
Yep.
I never thought about it as being, wow, that's kind of a boomy, kind of that lower frequency sound. What a great thing, again, to be preventative with our dogs. So
right,
got
right.
that.
Yeah,
The tennis
that's
balls or I love it.
Some ways, because that can be some of the challenge sometimes of coming up with some kind of novel sounds. So,
Yeah.
Well, this is WMNF Tampa. This has been Talking Animals. We are coming up close to the top of the hour, and NPR News will take over at that time. Mariah Shesky of Blue Sky Behavior in Missoula, Montana, has been my guest today, and you can find out all things Mariah on her website, blueskybehavior.net. And if you listen to the Tuesday tie-dye strip, you may be familiar with the Live Music Archives, and you may find Southbound MT on there with some recent shows from Goose and Tedeschi Trucks Band, and who knows
which all have some lower frequencies. So
which all have some
turn it
lower.
up and
There we go.
Listen to your music during the storm.
There we go. But thank you so much for spending an hour of your vacation
Thank
here
you
with
so
us
much, Glenn.
on WNF. This was a great time. Hope everybody enjoyed it, and thank you again, Mariah.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. This is WMNF Tampa. Again, this is Glenn Hatchell. Thanks to Duncan Strauss for letting me sit in for him today. I'm pretty sure, is going to be back with you next week. We're going to let some music take us up to NPR News. This is WMNF Tampa.
Dig, if you will, the picture of you and I engaged in a kiss. The sweat of your body covers me. Can you, my darling, can you picture this? Dream if you can, a courtyard, an ocean of violets in bloom. Animals strike curious poses. They feel the heat between me and you. Just leave me standing alone in a world that's so cold. Maybe I'm just too demanding. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Maybe you're just like my mother. She's never satisfied. Why do we scream at each other? This is what it sounds like when the doves cry. Touch if you in my stomach. Feel how it trembles inside. You got the butterflies all tied up. Don't make me chase you, even doves have pride. Just leave me standing alone in a world so cold. Maybe I'm just too demanding. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Maybe you're just like my mother. She's never satisfied. Why do we scream at each other?
This is WNF Tampa.